Good morning. This is Mike Willins, Content Director for Auto Body Repair News and Advanstar Automotive Group. Welcome to our webinar today featuring Mike Anderson with collisionadvice.com. The webinar is on overcoming common estimating errors, and anybody who has listened to Mike or heard Mike in the past knows that is a subject he knows very well. Mike is a former shop owner, Wagon Work Collision Centers out of Alexandria, Virginia. He's also a facilitator of 20 groups for Axalta and has done a lot of speaking and training in the marketplace, so we're very happy to have him. I want to really thank, before we get started, Vale Training Solutions. Vale is the sponsor for this event, and without their support, this kind of program this might not be possible, so we really appreciate that. We're going to go through a lot of information today, and when we get to the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. Hopefully we can get through everything and be able to have a substantial Q&A. You'll notice on your console there's a button and a form you can fill out just asking questions along the way. If for some reason we don't get to your question, all those questions get logged and we can follow up with you at the end. So don't despair. Also note that at the end we'll give you a archive link so that when this edition goes into archives, you'll have access to that and can view it at a later point. So if you miss anything, don't get upset because, like I said, we have a lot of information coming. So with that, I want to turn it over to Mike and let him take it away.
Okay, Mike, I really appreciate you having me here today, and thank you for everybody that's attending. So what we need to do is we need to just cover a little bit of antitrust guidelines here right now, so we'll just kind of read these. In today's workshop, we will not discuss any issues that would violate antitrust guidelines. Surveys of prices, discounts, and cost are permissible, but only under strict guidelines and only if they're not part of a conspiracy to fix prices to otherwise restrain trade. Remember that prices charged must be calculated and determined by the business owner alone. These prices should take into account the cost of doing business and include allowances for reasonable profit. All content of this program is based on standard economic and management principles. Profit margins, labor rates, etc. used in this presentation are to be taken as examples only. And the intent of this workshop is to provide attendees with basic human resources and management skills that will enable them to determine their own individual rates, profit percentages, and other operation aspects of their businesses strictly on an individual basis using generally accepted management principles. So again, Mike, ABRN, and also Vale Tech, thank you for having me. So one of the things that I've experienced as I travel across the country is that there seems to be a lot of challenges for people to complete an accurate and a thorough damage analysis. Some of those challenges are things such as the blueprinter or the estimator or repair planner, whatever term you use. They say, you know what, quite honestly, Mike, I don't have enough time to complete a thorough 100% disassembly. I also have found that sometimes people really don't understand what is really required for 100% disassembly, that everybody has a different perspective about what 100% disassembly is. Sometimes people don't complete an accurate estimate because they say they don't have accurate parts information in the estimating system. So for example, one of the estimating systems may not have a specific part that maybe is found later on in the OEM's parts graphics. We've also found that sometimes a lot of shops do not have access to OEM requirements. That means they don't know whether or not that it's a proper repair method to section a frame rail in, or if it's a proper repair method and what needs to be removed, it's an electronic component within 12 inches of the weld zone area. And quite honestly, a lot of times we're dealing with estimators that are new into the industry, or maybe they work for an insurance carrier or a shop, either one, and they've never really worked on cars, haven't had a lot of technical training, and they really just don't even have the knowledge required for the processes. And last but not least, we find that a lot of times we find estimators or damage analysis experts that really do know what it takes to fix a car properly, but they don't know how to communicate that properly. They don't know how to communicate it to a paying party, whether it's a fleet company or an insured. So they don't know how to properly document or communicate their needs. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is how can we utilize technology and other resources to assist us in overcoming these challenges? Well, first of all, I think it's really important that we understand that everybody needs to look at a supplement as a redo or a comeback. You know, quite often in my seminars, I'll ask people, if you had a body technician and they fix 10 cars a week and you had to redo, and that body technician had to redo 5 of those cars, what would you do? And some people will say, well, I'd sit down and I'd talk to the body tech, Mike. Okay, well, what happens after you talk to them? They continually have to redo half their jobs. most people that are an owner or manager say, you know what, I'd have to fire that person, let them go. Then I ask them, well, what about the painter? What about if the painter paints, 10 cars a week and 5 of those cars they have to repaint because of color match or dirt or run or whatever the case may be? What would you do? Again, the same thing, we'd fire them. So why would we fire them or dismiss them from employment? We would dismiss them because they have to redo a lot of their work, and that's very costly to us. I think as estimators, we need to look at, whenever we have a supplement, we need to look at that as a redo. When you study lean manufacturing principles, it's all about eliminating waste. Now, again, I understand that if a customer comes in off the street, you write an estimate for them and they leave, you maybe not were able to do 100% tear down, and you may have a supplement on that. But once a vehicle arrives on our premises, we've taken the keys and we have the opportunity to dismantle the vehicle, there really should be no reason that we should be having a supplement on that estimate. If we do, that's a comeback or a redo on our estimate. I can tell you that as I've traveled the country, I've seen the best of the best on drivable vehicles. Their supplement ratio is less than 4%. That means that if they write 100 estimates, less than 4 of those will have a supplement after they've done a proper 100% tear down. For non-drive vehicles, we're seeing that the best of the best, that is less than 11%. So as a benchmark or KPI, it's really important that we understand what our supplement ratio is. We need to think about supplements as a redo or waste. Now, one of the things that I have learned in my experiences of traveling, and I learned this lesson from some people in Hawaii called central body and paint, was I learned the value of doing things with your employees versus to your employees. One of the things that I saw when I moved to Hawaii was the challenges that they had in getting parts. So a lot of times I'll walk into a shop and I'll say, do you feel that you do 100% tear down? Because 100% tear down is really the key to minimizing or eliminating supplements or redos on our estimate. But I found a lot of people have a different perception of 100% tear down. So the body man's perception of 100% tear down is, well, I can see all the damage. The estimator's perception of 100% tear down is that they can see all the broken parts. The painter's perception of 100% tear down is, well, I don't have to get the body man to come to the paint shop to take something off after he sends it over here. And while they're all correct, they're also different. And so what I did was, when I went to Hawaii with central body and paint, one of the things I did was I took a flip chart and I brought all the technicians and estimators together and I said, okay, if we were going to build a list or a chart that says, have you R&I'd everything for ... what would that list look like? For example, if we were going to build a list and again a chart that we would like to take and post on our wall in our teardown bay that says if you've completed all these things, you've done 100% teardown, what would be on that list? For example, have you R&I'd everything for discovery of hidden damage? Have you R&I'd everything for discovery of broken parts? Have you R&I'd everything for paint? And then I like to add external and internal. Quite often I see a lot of people will take off all the door handles, the moldings, the mirrors, and everything on the exterior of the vehicle during the 100% tear down. But what they tend to neglect or overlook is they tend to neglect or overlook the things that they could actually take and remove internally for the painter. So say I'm going to weld a core support in and I need to remove some things off the apron so the refinish technician can do a proper job on the inside. Should that be on our list, R&I for paint externally and internally? Another thing we put on our list was, have you R&I'd everything for safety, specifically no welding within 12 inches? iCar and all of your OEM manufacturers all state you cannot weld within 12 inches of an electrical component. We need to be doing this during 100% teardown. Have you R&I'd everything for parts mirror matching so that all your parts can be in one common place so they can be mirror matched? Quite often I go into a shop and I ask them if they're mirror matching and they say they are, but they're really not. Mirror matching is taking the old part and comparing it with the new part when the new part arrives to see if it's the correct part. Well, if we're asking a parts person to mirror match these parts and they have to go to 5 different places, then they're not very efficient. Maybe they got to go to the body man install to mirror match the parts. Maybe they need to go to the trunk of the car. Maybe some of the parts are still bolted on the car. So one of the things we put on this list was, have you R&I'd everything so all of your parts can be in one common place to expedite the mirror matching process? Bottom line is, we went through and we built this list, but we did it with the technicians and with the estimators versus just taking this list and putting it on the wall. And we saw great improvements in their cycle time, great improvements in the reduction of supplements, and great improvement in the reduction of parts orders per vendor per RO. By the way, at the end of this call, you'll be provided a website link that you'll be able to go to, and if you'd like to download this poster, you'll be able to download this poster that we created, and you can use it and modify it for your staff. But what I need you to understand is, the value in this R&I poster is not the poster itself. The value is in the discussion that took place where we were all talking about this and everybody understood everybody's viewpoint. So the value is not in the poster. The value is in the aha moment or the the discussion that took place so everybody was on the same page. Now, once we've done 100% teardown or 100% disassembly, it's really important that we utilize technology to write a more accurate sheet. I really believe that every estimator should have dual monitors. So that way you can look at your estimating graphics on one screen, and you can look at the OEM parts graphics or any of the OEM repair information like through AllData or CCC1's repair methods or Mitchell's equivalent on the other screen as well. So I really like the utilization of two monitors. Used to, you had to buy a monitor and you had to put a video card into your CPU to make it work. Today they make splitters. It's very easy to add a dual monitor. I also believe that we need to be accessing all of the OEM parts websites. Most all of your OEM manufacturers actually make available their parts websites, so you can look at the same exact thing as the vehicle manufacturer's dealership would be when you're writing your estimate. I have found that it's not uncommon to be writing an estimate in one of the CCC Mitchell Autotechs, and I'll have the OEM parts graphics up the same exact time and find there are parts in the OEM's graphics that are not in the databases. So it's really important we have that so we can make sure we get the right part the first time. I also like to use dual monitors because if I'm looking at the OEM graphics and I see they have a part that the estimating system does not have, I can just right-click on it, I can copy, move right over, and then once I copy it, move right over to my estimating system and right-click and paste it. I also believe we should have dual monitors, so again, so that we can actually look at any of the OEM repair procedures to make sure that we're fixing the vehicle properly. Alrighty, so what do we do once we get all these things? Well, I really encourage you that if you're what I call a back-end estimator, that means that you're in the back of the shop, you're working with a technician writing supplements. I really think that you shouldn't have a desk in the office. You need to have a portable estimating station in the very back. One of the carts that's really easy to use that I really encourage people to use is the Goliath carts by Dito Diaz. They were at NACE and they'll be at SEMA again. But I really like these carts. They've got really good, strong wheels on them, so they roll around. They have a printer, fax, and scanner all built into it on the cart. And then again, you can have dual monitors. I really believe that the days of the estimator having a desk in the office, they go out, take notes, they come back and enter it in, that's really waste because either one, if you need to know something, you got to walk back out, look at the car again, which is waste of motion, or we call the technician up front of the office to say, hey, can you show me which of these brackets you need on the screen? And when we do that, it's stopping the technician, and anytime we stop and start, that's waste. So I really think that the estimator blueprinters of today need to have a workstation out there in the shop, right there next to the technician, and writing that sheet in real time. I'm also seeing a lot of shops that have front-end estimators, that people that are really good at getting the keys and dealing with customers, and then they're getting people that really are good at 100% teardown. They're finding that the personality traits of those people are sometimes different. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is safety. One of the things I think we need to all make a priority on, whether you're an insurer or a body shop estimator, is we've got to make sure that we're writing a damage analysis that actually is to fix the vehicle properly and safely. Those consumers are trusting you as an insurer to insure them and look out for their best interests, and they're trusting you as a shop when they bring your vehicle to you to make sure you're fixing the vehicle properly. So one of the things I often ask people is, how many of you have fixed a Toyota, a Honda, a Hyundai, or a Kia in the past 2 years? And many people raise their hands and say they have. The very next thing I ask them is, how many of you have performed a zero-point calibration or performed an occupant classification system reset, or WCS? See, if we look right here at what Toyota, Lexus, and Scion says, this one here specifically on a Toyota, it says that you must perform a zero-point calibration if any of the conditions occurs. Again, this information was gathered from Toyota through AllData. But Toyota clearly says on this vehicle that if a vehicle is in an accident, you'll see where I have highlighted in the blue section, it says that the vehicle is brought into the workshop for repair after an accident or collision, you must perform a zero-point calibration. If you did not do this, you did not fix the car properly. And this could affect airbag deployment in the future. Again, the reason I know this is because I researched what the OEM said when I was writing my estimate. Let's look at what Honda says. Honda says that when you go to work on a vehicle, it says, note, check the ODS unit operation after any of these actions. Any means just one of these, not 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, but just one of these. And we look at bullet point number 4, it says after a vehicle collision. If you did not check the ODS unit, which must be done with a factory scan tool, you did not fix this vehicle properly, nor did you write an accurate damage analysis. We look at what Hyundai and Kia say. They say that if you go down there where it says note, it says ODS is utilized in a robust weight measuring technology. Thus, if any, again, keyword any of the following conditions occurs, WCS reset and accuracy check should be performed. Bullet point number 2, the vehicle is brought to the repair shop due to an accident or a crash, even though the severity seems minor. So here's the deal. If we did not perform these items or these repair processes on these vehicles, no matter how minor the damage, we did not write an accurate damage analysis, we did not do a proper repair. You know, I hate to say this, but one of the things I tell people, they're either going to love me or hate me. They're never going to like me. But as body shops, quite often we use the insurance companies as an excuse for our ignorance or our lack of knowledge. We say, well, the insurer will never pay for this, when the reality is we didn't even know to charge for it. So I think it's time that we all look in the mirror and we make sure that we research what it takes to fix the vehicle properly, and then we need to be charging for that appropriately. And for you insurers, if you refuse to pay for this because you say that nobody else charges me for that, that could be a very bad thing for everybody involved, because this is what the OEM said that need to be done to ensure that that airbag will deploy in the future. So this is about safety, not what somebody else down the street charges. Okay, now when we go to the next slide, again, you'll see that Kia says the same thing. If the vehicle is brought to a repair shop due to an accident or a crash, even though the severity seems to be minor, you must do a WCS reset. Now I want to show you another one here that's very interesting. Recently I was working on a Nissan Versa. Everyone knows that you cannot weld with 12 inches of any electrical component. So we're putting a quarter panel on this Nissan Versa. In order to do that, we had to remove the airbag. In order to remove the airbag, we had to remove the headliner. In order to remove the headliner, we had to remove the center pillar trim panel. You'll notice that when we remove the center pillar trim panel and we research this, that Nissan actually says, warning, do not reuse center pillar upper garnish if removed. Now here's the scary part. It looked like it would snap back in and be perfect. However, Nissan clearly says, warning, do not reuse this if I remove it. So even though it snaps back into place, Nissan is saying that I need to replace this. Had I not researched this particular specific interior trim piece, I would not have known this. I would have done an improper repair. So one of the things that we need to understand is that when you're dealing with some of these other products like Mitchell or CCC or ALLDATA that actually says that they have a product that will research and tell you what the OEM manufacturer says, it only works if you have the verbiage on your estimate. So for example, if I had not had on my estimate R&I center pillar trim, then ALLDATA would have never picked up on that and told me that the center pillar trim needed to be replaced. So one of the things that concerns me is when a lot of these insurers mandate and say, look, you can only have so many lines on an estimate, and if you have too many lines, then you're actually going to score low. Well, what we're doing is when we eliminate putting these things on our estimates of R&I, what we're doing is we're meeting the insurance company's requirements. However, what we're doing is we're prohibiting the ability of anybody that has an interface for OEM software to actually scrub the estimate by the verbiage and tell us what we need to do to properly fix that vehicle. So again, 100% teardown is crucial. Even if that component or that labor operation is included, it needs to be line itemed on our estimate so that it can scrub the estimate, something such as ALLDATA, and tell us what needs to be done on this vehicle. So again, this specific vehicle, we had to replace the interior trim panel. I was working on a Honda recently where the airbag deployed, and there was actually a bulletin from Honda that said both of the sun visors must be replaced. And again, the key word was must. So a lot of times people say, well, Mike, how in the world can I take and look up every single part on every single vehicle? It would take me days to write an estimate. Well, I would agree with you. One of the things that the Japanese say is they say that hard work is not sustainable. So we need to learn how to work smarter. One of the things I've learned to utilize is something such as ALLDATA. This is not a commercial for ALLDATA. There's a lot of other products out there. CCC, Mitchell, Autotex have similar products. I'm just most familiar with ALLDATA. But when you write an estimate, ALLDATA will actually scrub your estimate. And this is any estimating system you use, CCC, Mitchell, Autotex, it will scrub your estimate, and once you select the vehicle that you wrote, it actually will come up here and show you all the OEM documentation it found based off of the verbiage that's on your estimate. So for example, if I have down to remove and replace a roof, and I click on this service and repair information, it would actually tell me what I need to do to properly put a roof on this vehicle according to the OEM manufacturer. If I click on, for example, add for clear coat, you'll see there's a bulletin or an icon there that tells me that this OEM manufacturer says I need to actually extend clear to the natural breaking point. So again, a lot of the things that I found, things such as 0-point calibration, I'll give you an example. I was putting a roof on a Volvo recently. I had the word seam sealer on my estimate. ALLDATA scrubbed the estimate, came back and told me that I have to use a specific type of seam sealer from 3M, and there were other seam sealers that were not allowed to be used on this specific repair. Why? Because some of these seam sealers got to have certain corrosion prohibitives in it, or they may actually have to have some type of certain structural integrity, especially if you're putting on a roof where a windshield would be installed or something like that. So again, all this OE information ensures that we're fixing the vehicle properly and writing an accurate estimate. But it all boils down to having 100% teardown to have the right verbiage on the estimate so that all data or an equivalent product can scrub the estimate, look at the verbiage, and then bring to your attention anything the OEM manufacturer says. So again, you'll see a variety of icons here. These icons all tell me the OEM says I need to do something specific in regards to that specific line on the estimate. So if you're not using all data, I would encourage you to contact them and maybe sit on a webinar. Now, maybe you work for a boss that's a cheapskate. Maybe your boss is too cheap and he's a tightwad or she's a tightwad, and they actually won't get all data for you, or CC1's repair methods or another similar product. Here's a website you can utilize. It's called www.oemonestop.com. This gives you access to all of the OEM websites. Now, what are the pros about this? The pros are that all of the American manufacturers, such as GM, Ford, and Chrysler, make their information available for free. The negative side of this is all of your German and Japanese manufacturers, or Koreans, such as Hyundai and Kia, you have to pay to access their information. Versus all data, you pay a monthly fee, you have unlimited access. Here, you can actually pay to look at it by the hour, by the day, by the week, by the month, or by the year. In addition, one of the disadvantages of this is you have to go find all the information yourself. It does not integrate with your estimating system, so therefore it does not utilize software to research it for you. So again, the cons are probably not really worth this, but again, if you have a cheapskate boss, then you could go here and at least you can look at the OEM information for the domestics for free, such as GM, Ford, or Chrysler. Now, another thing that I think we need to understand as estimators is that one of the myths that we have all been taught is that if there's no warning lights on the dash, we're A-OK. And that is a lie. We need to make sure that we're hooking up a factory scan tool to every vehicle before we start to fix it and also after it's done. Let me show you why. This is a Mercedes-Benz, for example. This was at a shop in Canada I was working with. There were no warning lights on the dash. No warning lights on the dash. But when I went to this research about a factory scan tool to this, we came back and we found out that there were actually 50 codes stored in 17 computers on this vehicle, and they were all from the accident. Had we not hooked up a factory scan tool to it, we never would have known this. There was a Toyota I did recently. No warning lights on the dash. No warning lights on the dash. Hooked up a factory scan tool to it. Told us that both the seatbelt sensors were bad. Had we not hooked up a factory scan tool, we would have not known that the vehicle needed 2 seatbelt sensors. It would have been an improper repair. I can show you hundreds of these examples that I've experienced while working as a consultant out in the field as well as my own shop. Most recently, I even wrote an article for ABRN called The Dash Light Myth, where I actually highlighted some of the vehicles that I had actually saw in my experiences where there were no warning lights on the dash. Now you say, well, Mike, if I had to go and buy a factory scan tool for every single one of these vehicles, I'd spend $500,000. That's correct. Or if I had to take every single vehicle to a dealership, it would kill my cycle time. That is correct as well. So what I encourage you to do is I encourage you to look at a company called Collision Diagnostic Services. They make a tool that's called an Aztec. So what happens is this company down in Jacksonville, Florida, they have all the factory scan tools as well as factory-trained certified technicians. I personally bought an Aztec unit myself. I hook it up to the vehicle. It goes over the Internet. And when it goes over the Internet, I see that apologize there, I had a technical difficulty. As I see that it goes over the Internet, you will actually see that they have a certified technician who has a factory scan tool that's hooked up to the Aztec unit on the vehicle. So bottom line is it actually will go through and it will scan everything for you on that vehicle and tell you what's wrong with it before or after. Here's an Audi Q7 we did recently. This Audi Q7 needed a rear bumper cover, and on the rear bumper cover, the owner, when he brought the vehicle in, he said, hey, my navigation unit doesn't work since the accident. We hooked this up. It was an insurance claim. Came back and told us the navigation unit had quit working 8,000 miles before the accident even occurred and told us the exact date and time. We saved the insurance company $1,500 because we were able to prove the navigation unit was not from the accident. So, again, I encourage you to use OEM scan tools. OEM information, there's a lot of OEM information available out there. OEM is original equipment manufacturers. They will have things such as position statements. Some of these position statements will tell you, for example, that they want you to extend clear to a natural braking point. Some of the OEMs will have documentation that tells you whether or not their structural components can be sectioned or not. Some of the OEM documentation will tell you whether or not the clear has to be extended to a natural braking point or what the position is on reconditioned wheels. One of the things that I have on my website, www.collisionadvice.com, if you go to Tools, Forms, and Links, any of the position statements I've collected, we make available for free on our website that you can download those for free. There's no charge. It's stuff we've gathered for the OEMs, and we just try to have a hosting place that everybody can download those. Again, I would definitely encourage you, again, if you're using a product like ALLDATA, it actually allows you to click on and see any of the OEM position statements. It's important we understand why the OEM manufacturers have these statements, and so that we can do proper repairs on the vehicle and justify why we need to do what we need to do. I'm just showing you some examples now. In the essence of time, I'm not here to show you all of these. I'm just here to give you some examples. Again, if you'd like to see some examples of these, you can email me directly, and I'll be glad to pass them on to you. Okay, so once we get some of this OEM documentation, we need to also make sure we look at the verbiage. One of the things I saw is some of the OEM manufacturers will have words like the word required. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being a strong word, 1 being a weak word, I think that required is a pretty strong word. You'll see some OEMs have the words like recommended. Recommended is probably about a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. If you see the word must, we need to make sure we follow through on that. And again, you'll see words such as should, warning, or critical. It's important we look at the verbiage on these OEM position statements. Another helpful website for you is www.paintscratch.com. If you cannot find a you cannot find a paint code on a vehicle, maybe it's been repaired before, somebody didn't replace the paint code decal, you go to this website, put in the year and the make and the model, and it shows you all the chips for that year and actually shows you the website. It shows you what the paint code is. So great website. It's a free website. I'd encourage you to check it out. All right, some other things that I've noticed. We need to make sure we look at the refinish suppliers such as Axalta, AkzoNobel, BASF, Sherwin-Williams, PPG, etc. They all have position statements that all say they will not warranty the blending of clear. They also say that finish, sand, and buff is a normal and necessary requirement, and they also all have bulletins that say that prepping of raw plastic is a required operation. Here's an example of a bulletin from DuPont on sanding and polishing, where they say it's a normal and necessary procedure in both the OEM plant as well as the body shop. Here's a bulletin from AkzoNobel. You'll see they have a very similar letter and document. Here's another letter from DuPont on the blending of clear, now known as Axalta, and here's one on prepping raw bumpers. So I encourage you, reach out to your paint manufacturer, ask them if they have any paint bulletins, and put these in as a catalog. For blending of clear, tinting to achieve an acceptable color match, prepping of raw bumpers, and things of that nature. I also want to encourage you to make sure that you look at a lot of other websites. There's a great website called partsvoice.com. If you ever can't find a part, you can go to this website. It's a free website. You put in the part number and the vehicle manufacturer, and it actually will tell you all the dealerships in the country that have this part in stock. So it's a great, great website to help you to find a part if you're trying to get a vehicle in at the last moment. I also would encourage you to check out a website called airbagsolutions.com. They've got a lot of great videos, a lot of great tips about what it takes to properly repair a vehicle in regards to airbag components. Some of the other websites you might want to look at are realoem.com. They show you all of the different all of the different parts graphics for any BMW, Mini, or even a BMW motorcycle. You have partsmydodge.com. You have eStore.honda.com. So bottom line is there are a lot of OEMs out there that make all of their parts graphics available to us. Here are some screenshots from Toyota and eStore.honda.com. If any of you want to contact me, I'll be glad to send you a list of all these different factory websites that you can actually get access to all the OEM graphics. And again, even an insurer can register on here and look at all the OEM parts graphics when they're writing an estimate. I think that helps us to get the right part the first time. Some of your OEM manufacturers do create software that interfaces. Many of you are familiar with OE Connect or moreoemparts.com. Toyota, Lexus, Honda, and Acura also have a software product called Parts Bridge. You can contact your dealerships. They'll install that on your computer. Parts Bridge will actually take and scrub your estimate, come back and tell you you selected all these parts, and these parts don't match the VIN number, or they do match the VIN number, and it actually allows you to order your parts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Keystone also has a similar product that they use, and it's called Keyless, and they'll install that, again, on your desktop for free as a software data pump to scrub your estimate. Now, refinishing tools. One of the things that I've seen that has come out recently is everybody's talking about blend within a panel and cutting paint times and repair panels. I did a presentation on this in November of 2006 at CIC. Basically, what I did was I asked the estimating companies 4 basic questions. Question number 1, can you change a paint time? Number 2, is the blend calculation determined to be used on damaged panels? Question number 3, if you were going to change a paint time, how much should you change it? And number 4, how can you tell? So the very first question I asked the estimating companies such as CCC, Motors, Mitchell, and Autotex was, can you change a paint time? And they all said, yes, absolutely. It's all based on the user judgment. You can make a paint time more. You can make a paint time less. Well, I will tell you, I've been in the industry since 1985. I've never seen an insurer make a paint time more, but I have seen insurers actually make a paint time less. Bottom line is, can you change a paint time? Yes, in any of the systems. It's user judgment. Question number 2, is the blend formula intended to be used on the partial refinish of damaged or repaired panels? I will tell you now that Autotech CCC Motors all said no, blend times are only to be used on undamaged panels. That's what Autotech said. You'll see the next slide is what Mitchell said. Blend formulas are only supposed to be used on undamaged panels. And you also see CCC, which is based on Motors, said the same thing. So question number 1, can you change a paint time? Absolutely. Question number 2, are blend formulas intended to be used on damaged panels? The answer is very clearly no. The third statement or question is do some body shops make concessions to insurance companies in order to be a DRP or get more business? Yes, they do. If you choose to do that, that's a business decision, and I don't judge you for that. But if you are going to do that, do you really want to give away half your entire paint time? So one of the things that we did was we asked the estimating companies, how do you come up with your paint time? And what we did was we took all of the P pages, and I apologize, we're going through this kind of quickly, but this presentation will also be able to be found on the ABRN website after this call. And we saw here what Mitchell and Autotech and CCC said. They said, okay, here's what's included or here's what's not included in our paint time. And we highlighted that out. Here's what's included or not included in our paint time for Autotech, and we highlighted that out. And then here's what's included and here's what's not included with paint time on Mitchell, and we highlighted that out. And then we asked the million-dollar question, how do you come up with your paint time? And here's what was shared to us. Motors, which CCC is based upon, said 47% of your paint time is to sand the entire panel. 27% of your paint time is to pre-wash the panel, 7% for sealer, and 19% for base coat application. So it's really important that we understand, even if you blend the color, you still need to sand the whole panel and pre-wash the whole panel. So you would not take and reduce or give away half of your sanding and pre-wash time, because we still have to do that in its entirety. The only thing that you may have to do less of would be your base coat or sealer application. So bottom line is, don't give away half your whole paint time when the only thing you may be reducing is your base coat or sealer application. So one of the things we did was we actually developed a tool called the Base Coat Reduction Calculator. Again, this will be available for you to download after this phone call. And what we did was we went through and we said, okay, here's the deal. If you put in your paint time, it automatically calculates how much of that paint time is for you is to sand the panel, pre-wash, apply sealer, and base coat. And then on the right-hand side, you can put in there if you wanted to reduce your base coat or sealer time by 50% or 30%, you could do that. So those are the facts in regards to base coat reduction. All right, the next thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is something that's called a blend roller. A blend roller is something that was developed by a guy by the name of Aaron Marshall of Marshall Auto Body in Wisconsin. One time I was consulting at Aaron's shop, and I saw that he had something laid on the hood of a vehicle. I said, Aaron, what is that? He said, that is a blend roller. He said, Mike, you take this and you place the edge of it if it gets a dent. You then have the first line, which is your feather edge. The second line is where your primer is going to go to. Your third line is where it's going to take to blend a dark metallic, which is 18 inches, or a light metallic, 24 inches. And I said, Aaron, can I show this to people? And he said, yes. So what I did was I took it and I showed it to a guy by the name of Dave Ludwig up at Prestige Auto Body in New Hampshire. Dave made one out of a magnet. I then showed it to a shop called Laddiff Brothers in Minnesota, and they made one out of a yardstick because they use a lot of spray polyester. And then I showed it to a shop called Beverly Coachcraft, and you'll see a picture of theirs in Beverly Hills, California. And everybody was using the blend roller, and they felt that they were getting paid for it, and life was good and life was fair. We were all holding hands and singing Kumbaya. And the next thing you know, somebody came in and they said, Mike, if you didn't use Axalta Paint or Sikkens or PPG, you wouldn't need this much distance to blend. So what I did was I went to Axo Nobel, and they were nice enough to share a letter with us that says it takes 18 to 24 inches to blend a light or dark metallic. We then actually, after that, we actually then went to Sherwin-Williams and PPG and BASF, and we went to all the other paint manufacturers, and we actually got letters or PowerPoints or photos from all of them saying that it actually took 18 to 24 inches in order to blend a light or dark metallic. You'll see right here, this was a bulletin we actually got from BASF. You'll see right here, there's another slide we got from BASF. And BASF was nice enough to put together a PowerPoint for us that showed this to us. We then approached Sherwin-Williams, and when we approached Sherwin-Williams, Sherwin-Williams was nice enough to not only put together a letter for us, but they actually also put together photos for us showing what was required and what it took to blend a light or a dark metallic. And so what I did was I put all of this actually into a PowerPoint to support the blend roller. Again, if you'll contact me, Mike at collisionadvice.com, I'll be glad to actually take and provide you with a copy of this blend roller PowerPoint with the photos that we actually got from all the paint manufacturers so you can actually document your blend roller. Again, you'll see here some photos from Sherwin-Williams. You'll see where they actually color-coded the entire panel. After that, they went through and they actually put some primer on there, and they just kind of showed what they needed to do in order to blend into the adjacent panels and how much distance it took. So bottom line is we got letters from a ton of different paint manufacturers on this, and everybody was doing really well, and they were getting paid for the blend roller. And then somebody called us up and they said, Mike, how do I know that it takes that much distance to feather edge or prime? So what we did is we actually then worked with a gentleman by the name of Scott Pierce at 3M. And what 3M did was they actually developed their own version of the blend roller. You'll see a photo of it here on the screen here momentarily. And right there you'll see that 3M actually came up with a blend roller. And they said place this at the edge of the dent, and this is how far it takes out to actually feather edge, to prime, and scuff for your blend. And by the way, if you're interested in getting one of these blend rollers from 3M, you'll see the next slide gives you the part number. You can write this down and order this from your jobber. The part number is 538904. Again, that part number is 538904. And so what we did was we went through and we actually 3M built a blend roller to document why we need to blend into adjacent panels. Now, are there some painters that can keep something very, very small and not have to blend the adjacent panel? Yes. But again, we need to understand that if you take an ICAR class, refinishing class, that we're tending to achieve a blendable match. And bottom line is, if we don't, and we try to attempt to blend something in too short of a distance, we may end up with a halo or some modeling or see the color differentiation. So we want to make sure we're utilizing these tools and these documents from the paint manufacturers. Okay, so what we did is after we got with 3M on that, we also got with ASA and also SCRS. And ASA actually developed a chart that's called the ASA Not Included charts. If you were to actually get with the Automotive Service Association, they actually take and they make a chart that's called the Not Included charts. You can download these from their website. We update these every 2 years, and you'll actually see that it gives you, for an example, a quarter panel, and it shows you everything that is not included when you put a quarter panel on. In this ASA Not Included chart, they make one for new parts and one for used parts, and it shows you everything that's not included when you put a fender on, a door skin, a quarter panel. So again, just another great job aid that we can utilize to make sure that we're writing an accurate estimate. Okay, ASA, the Automotive Service Association, also built a number of flyers, and on these flyers, they built some flyers that actually would show you, for example, all the not-included steps when you were going to blend the panel, or all the not-included steps that it was actually going to take to paint a used panel. For example, there's 114% more steps required to paint a used panel than a new panel. So a lot of these are not included. One of the other things I learned recently is that no paint manufacturer will warranty any paint job that has more than 12 mils of paint on it. So bottom line is if we get a part in, we need to make sure that we understand at the factory it's got 3.5 to 6 mils on it. You can repaint it one additional time, another 3.5 to 6 mils for a maximum of 12 mils. If it has more than that, the paint manufacturer will not warranty it. And not only that, but some of your autonomous braking features and some of your radar systems on some of your vehicles today with accident avoidance systems, if you have more than 12 mils of paint, it could affect that. So we need to make sure that we understand these types of things. Again, another flyer that's also put out by ASA is that there's 80% more steps required to paint a damaged panel than a new undamaged panel. Again, this is another tool that you could utilize as an estimator to justify your calls. Another thing that I'd like to speak about is something that's called the SCRS Guide to Complete Repair Planning. SCRS actually has this. You can download it from their website. Again, this originated from March Taylor of Auto Body Hawaii's original list of unforgettables. And bottom line is if you download this, it will show you all these things that are not included when you actually go to paint an estimate. When you go to paint an estimate, when you go to write an estimate, this shows you all the things that are not included when you go to do that. Okay, the next thing I'd like to show to everybody is the DEG website. The DEG website is a website that is actually sponsored by the 3 largest auto body associations, ASA, AASP, and SCRS. This website can be used for 4 different things. Number one is if you're writing an estimate and you see that a part is missing out of the database and you find it, from your OEM dealership, go to this website, post a question that goes to Art Harris. Art Harris will then send it to the OEM manufacturers, or he'll send it to the information providers and say, look, this part is missing out of the database. You need to add it, and then CC Signature Autotext will add it to the database. And it's a permanent addition. The second thing you can utilize this website for is it's not uncommon to find parts that you weld into a vehicle that will be missing a body or a paint labor time. It will just be blank. For example, the other day I repaired a wheelhouse on a Mini Cooper for 3 hours, and when I clicked on it to repair it, it gave me no paint labor. I then went to the DEG website. I said, I'm repairing this wheelhouse on a Mini Cooper for 3 hours. It gave me no paint labor. I submitted the time. CCC came back, and they added 0.8 to paint the wheelhouse in the future. I also was painting a Kia grill recently. Selected the grill, replaced the grill on a Kia Rio. It did not give me any paint labor with one of the specific estimating companies. So again, if you see a part that's missing a labor time for body or paint, go to this website and submit it. This is a free website. The third thing you can use it for is determine if something's included or not. When you go to this website, you can submit a question like John Borick did from Austin, Texas. He was replacing a trunk floor in a Honda. It paid $1.2 to paint the trunk floor, and he wanted to charge an hour to paint the underside. Well, what he did was the insurance company said, look, we're not paying you an hour to paint the underside. That's included with the 1.2. John went to this website. He said, I'm replacing a trunk floor in Autotex. Pays 1.2 to paint the trunk floor. Does this include the underside as well? Autotex came back on the DEG website and said it does not include the underside. And bottom line is he was able to show the insurance company this was not included. So a great website for that as well. Another thing you can use this website for is if you disagree with the time. If, for example, your bodyman or painter says this does not pay enough, go to this website and submit your question as to why you feel like it does not pay enough. Tell them how many spot welds there is, or if it's a painted operation, how many square inches that the item is that you're refinishing. Art Harris will then send it to the estimating companies that will review it, and I will tell you 80 to 85% of all people get a time changed. If you get a moment, you can go to this website, degweb.org. When you go to the search feature, just type in Audi rocker. You will see where a rocker panel on an Audi Q7 paid 9.5 hours for units to install from Autotex. The shop fixing the vehicle felt that wasn't enough time because of the materials it was made out of. They submitted it, and the time got changed from 9.5 to 34.7. You also see another one in this website on an Audi rocker cover where it paid 0.6 to paint an Audi rocker cover, but 0.8 to paint a door molding. Well, obviously the rocker cover is much larger than the door molding. Submitted an inquiry, and it got changed to 1.6. So I would encourage you to use this website and use it. Again, it's just a great, great website. Show this to your technicians, your painters, everybody involved. Another website that I'd like to tell you about is called estimatescrubber.com. When you go to this website, it has a feature that says upload your estimate. You can upload your estimate as a PDF. Obviously, if you've got insurance privacy guidelines, you want to white out the claim number and black out the customer's information, etc. But when you upload this estimate, it will scrub your estimate and come back and tell you everything that's not included that you didn't charge for, according to the SCRS Guide to Complete Repair Planning. Again, one of the things you can do on this is when you scrub your estimate, a blue check mark means that you've got verbiage on your estimate that says you charged for it. A red dot says you did not. Again, I would not encourage you to do this on every estimate. It's very time-consuming, but if you had an entry-level estimator, this is a great way to help him to understand exactly what's included and what's not included. Okay, a couple other things that you might want to be familiar with is I would encourage you, if you're using CCC, Mitchell, or Autotex, one of the things that you might want to do is talk to them about the rekeying options. CCC has a feature called Auto Work File Entry, or AWE for short, and this actually will allow you to rekey an estimate without having to retype the whole estimate. It allows you to download an estimate from CCC, put it completely in your system and from an insurer, and not have to retype it. Autotex has also a product called Claims Element, and Mitchell has a similar product. So if any of you out there are retyping estimates in and you're rekeying it, meaning you're retyping it in verbatim, make sure you get with your information provider and ask them what type of things are available to them or to you that will actually allow you to actually take and not have to retype that estimate in. Okay, a couple other things I'd like to mention here as we try to get down to the nitty-gritty on this is the importance of utilizing good line notes. When you go to write an estimate, make sure you've got good line notes in there as to why you R&I'd something, maybe why you were refinishing something, or maybe why you chose to replace something. Good line notes are the key to getting paid from an insurer. Also, it's very important that we understand how to take good photos. One of the things I'd like to encourage you to do is if you go to YouTube, www.youtube.com, and you type in State Farm High Tech Toolbox, you'll see that State Farm has a very, very good video on collision photography. It's a great video put together by Roger Cada. And again, I would highly encourage you, even if you're not a DRP, even if you don't do work for State Farm, go to youtube.com, type in State Farm High Tech Toolbox, and I think that you'll get great value out of this. I would encourage you to have your entire staff watch this video. Another place you can also watch a great video at on how to take photos is on collisionhub.com. When you go to collisionhub.com, Kristen Felder and Larry Montanez have recently put together a very good video on how to take really, really good photos. And again, I think, this is the key to our getting paid for things in the future. Okay, a couple other things I'd like to encourage you to do here as well is as we're looking for consistency in our estimating process, I think it's really important that we also understand the importance of setting up quick codes. Mitchell calls them long expansion. CCC, I believe, calls them parts tables. Some quick codes that help you, again, with consistency in how you write your estimates. One of the things that you'll see is, for example, some verbiage here that we set up as explanation lines. So by R&I electrical component, I can automatically attach an explanation line that says within 12 inches of the weld zone. So again, I would encourage you to set up some very good quick codes and shortcuts. Again, if you'd like some examples of these, you can contact me. Again, I'll make it available no charge. I have about 23 to 30 pages of quick codes or long expansions or parts tables, whatever term you use, that I like to utilize in my estimating systems, again, so I have consistency. But also for things, for example, if I want a quarter panel in, I have quick codes or long expansions that will say, for example, I need to paint the outer rocker and repair the outer rocker, the outer wheelhouse, and all my adjacent panel damage as well. So again, quite a few things that are available to us in regards to line notes. Okay, a couple other things I'd like to leave you with here is make sure, again, that you look at your estimate and audit it. You'll see here this was an estimate that was written in CCC, but it could have very well have been Mitchell Autotext. Just happens to be the one I chose. And you'll see, for example, there where I welded a frame rail in and a frame rail extension, and I actually chose this on my estimate, and it gave me no body labor or paint labor on my estimate. Well, everybody knows in order for me to weld a rail extension in, I need body labor and paint labor. Also, if you look down at the bottom, some of the other circles, you'll see that we were actually replacing a wheelhouse. It gave us body labor to replace the wheelhouse, but no paint labor. You also see there where we're putting a right quarter extension in, and it gave us no body labor or no paint labor. This was one estimate that when we went through and reviewed it, was missing 28 hours of labor that we had to submit to the DEG website and get approvals on. So keep in mind, again, a lot of your components, if it's included, it will say INCL period. If it's blank, it's because the computer does not know a time. So it's really important that we understand that. Okay, last but not least, a lot of people say, well, Mike, I really don't have time to go through and research every single vehicle through all data or hook up a scan toward every single vehicle. So what do you recommend? Well, here's what I recommend. I know that we live in a real world where we don't always have time for these things. So what I would encourage you to do is, at a minimum, anytime you have one of these safety triggers, I would encourage you to research the OEM information and hook up a factory scan tool to it. What are those safety triggers? Anytime you're doing any welding on a vehicle, anytime you're doing any structural repair or replace, anytime you're removing, replacing, or overhauling any suspension, anytime we're doing any alignment work, anytime you're R&Ing any interior trim panels, we want to research to make sure that they can be reused, and anytime you're doing any airbag or SRS work, safety restraint systems. Again, you may have some other safety triggers that in your business you choose to try to utilize to research the OEMs on this. One of the things, again, I think is very important to understand is that we everybody on this call, we all have a duty and an obligation to the customer to do a safe and proper repair. It all starts with doing a 100% teardown. Secondly, it is really important that we research what the OEM manufacturer says we need to do to properly fix this vehicle. So I know we had a lot of slides. I probably went through this way too quickly. I want to make sure that everybody understands that Mike will share with you my contact information, my phone number, my website, my email. If I can do anything to help any of you, I'd be more than delighted to help you however I can. So, Mike, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Really good information, very, very quick. I'm amazed you were able to get through what you got through as quickly as you did. And there's certainly a lot more available. And in a second, we'll put Mike's email address up again so everybody has it. Also remember that we're going to archive this event for future viewing. I want to go through some questions that we got from the audience. One of the first questions is, do you have any idea on the gauge, or what is the turnaround time on answers from the DEG?
So I would say on the DEG, the average turnaround time is between 0, which is same day, and 3 days. Are there some inquiries that take 15 or 20 days to research? Yes, but they're generally going to be some type of specialty vehicle or maybe something that's not an operation that's done on everyday occurrence. But the general turnaround time is going to be anywhere from 0 to 3 days. Okay.
Another question is, can we add color, sand, and buff to an estimate? Because most insurance companies do not pay it.
Sure. Now, one of the things I wish our industry would do is get away from the word color, sand, and buff, but I realize that's what the P pages call it. So, Amanda, I appreciate that question from you. So color, sand, and buff is from lacquer days, but I like to refer to it as finish, sand, and buff, or DNIB. All of the estimating systems, CCC, Autotext, and Mitchell, have formulas for finish, sand, and buff, color, sand, and buff, or whatever you prefer to call it. Two of the information providers also have formulas for DNIB. So here's what I like to do, Amanda. I like to use 4 questions when I'm going to determine if I'm going to get paid for something. Question number 1, is it required to put the vehicle back to pre-accident condition? I can prove it's required because several of the OEMs, such as Toyota and Lexus, have bulletins that say it's required. Every one of your paint manufacturers have bulletins that says it's a normal and necessary operation in both a body shop and a manufacturing plant. So question number 1, is it required? Yes, I prove that. Question number 2, is it included in any other labor operation? I can prove to you through the DEG website or the ASA not included charts that finish, stain, and buff is not included in any labor operation. Number 3, is there a formula? Yes, there is. For example, in Mitchell, it's 30% of the base coat time to finish, stain, and buff. DNIB is 20% of the base coat time. So yes, I do believe the color, stain, and buff should be added to an estimate. I do believe that a lot of times insurers will say, well, I don't pay it if you get dirt in the paint. But a lot of times we have to paint and stain and buff because of the fact that clear puddles and chips, sometimes acid rain will cause the paint substrate to soften up and cause swelling when we paint it. So I do believe that color, stain, and buff is a legitimate item that should be itemized on an estimate, and every paint manufacturer out there says that it's required. In addition, if you contact 3M, 3M actually made a negotiation tool where they actually have letters from all the paint manufacturers as well as the OEMs as well as documentation from 3M that says that it's required operation. If you can't find it, Amanda, feel free to email me and I'll send it to you.
Great. Another question, and I'm really not sure if there's an easy answer to this one. Who's liable if they don't perform an operation that the manufacturer requires? Is it the shop, the tech, the insurance?
Absolutely, it is the shop. I can tell you I have testified in court cases where it went to court, a shop did not fix a car properly. Their defense or excuse, for lack of a better word, was, well, the insurance company would not pay me, and I will tell you I've never seen a judge or a jury accept that. You, at the end of the day, are the person that consumer has a contract with to fix their vehicle, and I can tell you now, an insurance company refusing to pay you for something does not remove you from the liability. So you have a couple options. If it's a safety issue, either A, do it for free, B, charge the owner, C, refuse to do the job. But I will tell you right now, just because an insurer refuses you to pay for something does not remove you from any liability at all. You as a technician, you as a body shop owner, are absolutely responsible 100% to do a safe and proper repair.
Great. Got a question from Anthony. He says, how do you gauge paint thickness on aluminum or plastic?
Okay, so they do make some digital mill gauges that actually I will tell you, they make one that's pretty affordable. Most of your paint manufacturers have it for steel and aluminum. And what it does is it takes a reading based off of like sonar. They do make some for plastic as well. The ones on plastic are very, very expensive. But there are a variety of different ones out there. Again, I would get with your paint manufacturer. Most of your paint reps have one, and they can tell you which company to purchase those from. But basically, they're digital. They're not magnets. They're actually digital, and I have seen them for both plastic and for metal.
Next, another question. I'm gonna kind of rephrase this because I'm not sure how you stand on this. Is do you want to give an opinion on the Parts Trader program?
Oh my gosh. Now I'll answer this. So here's the deal. Do I think Parts Trader can be cumbersome? Yes, I do. Do I think Parts Trader restricts a shop of freedom of choice on where to buy their parts? Yes, I do. Do I lose sleep over Parts Trader? Not as much as I do about safely properly fixing the vehicle. Again, I'm not making light of it because a lot of people out there say Mike Anderson's, on the take with State Farm and Parts Trader. I'm so freaking sick of that because that's so far from the truth. All I'm saying is that safety needs to be our priority. And we spend a lot of time worrying about Parts Trader, worrying about whether CCC is sharing our data, but what we don't do is we don't worry about that we do a 0-point calibration on the vehicle. So my point I try to make is if I don't do a 0-point calibration on a Toyota, and that vehicle's in an accident, and that person dies or gets really maimed and ends up as a quadriplegic in a wheelchair or paraplegic in a wheelchair, it won't matter how I ordered the part. What will matter is that I didn't do that 0-point calibration. So I feel like my message is getting really misconstrued out here. So all I'm saying is that Parts Trader is low on my totem pole. Now, again, does that mean I don't have concerns? No, I didn't say that. I'm just saying that I'm more concerned that I've been on the road this year. By the end of the year, I'll be on the road 347 days. I will have taught over 4,000 people. And I can tell you that those 4,000 people, less than 10 have actually knew what a 0-point calibration was or an occupant classification system reset or a WCS, or they're not hooking up factory scan tools. And all I'm saying is that is more important to me than everything else. So I don't know if that's a correct answer or not.
It isn't.
And I want to make one thing other very clear.
Easy.
A lot of people are saying, Mike, you seem like you're more for the insurance companies than you are for body shops. No, that's not true. I'm about getting paid to fix the car properly. That's what I'm all about. And I really, really, truly believe that we need to understand that we got to start taking accountability what it takes to fix these cars properly. There's one specific vehicle manufacturer that requires 100% argon when you weld. I go into shops all the time, and none of them have a separate set of tanks hooked up for their welder with 100% argon. That scares me. These are the things that scare me.
Yeah. Another question is related to the estimating systems, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. Is there a way to convert the estimate, or is there a way that the estimating system company like CCC can help with rekeying an estimate from one of the other systems? Can they convert from one adjuster's estimate written to in one system to another?
Right. So currently, right now, CCC, mentioned Autotext, they all kind of use a different language, for lack of a better word. So there's not a way to take an Autotext estimate and put it into CCC or Mitchell into Autotext or vice versa. There is a company of some young people that have started a company called www.estify.com, ESTIFY.com. ESTIFY.com. They have actually built software where you can scan an estimate, and it will actually input the estimate for you into the estimating system just by a paper copy. In addition, they've also taken the same software, and they've actually built it where you can actually scan the insurance estimate and your estimate, and it will go through and tell you all the differences. So I'm sure a lot of you probably take your estimate and the insurance estimate, and you're going through and highlighting what the differences are, and that's very time-consuming. They've actually built software that will do that for you. I do not know the price. I do know that I have actually used the product personally, and it does work, but it's www.estify.com.
A couple other questions, and then we're going to probably have to wrap it up. Do we get paid for using scan tools?
I will tell you now that I charge for it on my estimates. What I do is on the beginning of the estimate, I put down what I call a health scan. I need to do a health scan to ensure that the vehicle is okay. I can tell you there are insurers that will pay for that, no problem at all. There's some insurers that will not, and if that's the case, then I go to the vehicle owner. Not that I want to do that, but here's the deal. I'll give an example. I had a Volkswagen the other day. No warning lights on the dash, none. And it told me that the right front airbag sensor was bad. I recently had a Toyota, no warning lights on the dash. I was going to put a fender on it, and I hooked a factory scan tool to it through Aztec, obviously, Collision Diagnostic Services, and it came back and told me the mirror had lost its memory on the right door. Well, I was going to be detrimming this door in order to blend the door. Had I not done that, I would not have known that the door mirror wasn't working. The reason it didn't work was because of low voltage drop, because it's 2013. It was a 2008 truck, and it had the battery had low voltage in it. So, yes, absolutely. And the other thing is like you can have a door off of a vehicle or a battery disconnected, and then we'll actually store codes every time you cycle the key. So the vehicle comes in and has 0 codes in it. Then I hook it up in the end, and it's got codes it's stored from where I turn the key on. Well, to put the vehicle back to pre-accident condition, I need to return that vehicle back with no codes, and I need to clear all those. So absolutely, I put it on my estimate as what's called a health scan because it's what there's no way you can know that everything on that vehicle is okay without hooking it up. I know there's some insurers that might not like that answer, but I can show you, literally hundreds. I can show you over 100 vehicles I have personally scanned that had no warning lights on the dash and all had accident-related issues with that vehicle. So I put it on my estimate as a health scan, and that's what I call it.
Last question I think we have time for is related to the early in this presentation you talked about the dash lights, and they were wondering how could you tell on the first cars you listed about the dash lights, were they actually related to the loss?
Okay, so some of your newer vehicles will have what's called freeze frame data, where it actually stores the date, the time, and the mileage it occurred. So in that case, there's no argument. Some of the other ones were that based on the condition of the vehicle, and basically you have an OEM certified tech that's actually interpreting the scan data, and then they will ask certain questions. I will tell them, and they'll say, you know what, I would say the high probability is this is from an accident or it's not. Have I seen things not from accidents? Absolutely. I had a vehicle the other day where all it got was a front bumper cover, no warning lights on the dash. We scanned it, and it said the right rear speed sensor was bad. Well, that obviously was not from the accident. So, again, it depends on the vehicle, make, and model, but a lot of your newer vehicles have freeze-frame data that tell you the exact date, time, and mileage that occurred. I'll share a quick funny story with you. We had a Volkswagen. Lady picked it up at like 4:30 on a Wednesday. The next day she calls us back, and she says, my radio hasn't worked since you all fixed my car. So we said, we'll bring it back in. We'll take a look at it. We hooked up the factory scan tool to it, and it told us that at 9:30 that night, her radio had quit working because somebody plugged an incompatible device into the USB port. So it told us the exact date, time, and mileage. So I went out there and I said, ma'am, I've got good news and bad news. She said, what's that? I said, the good news is we cleared your radio code and your radio works. She said, what's the bad news? I said, your car says you're a liar. I'm not saying you're a liar, but your car said you're a liar. Your car says that this happened at 9:30 last night. You said it happened since we fixed the car, but your car said it happened this date and time. And, of course, she didn't think that was too funny, but I did. I'm just not one of those people who thinks the customer's always right.
Big Brother's always watching.
Yes.
Well,
I do want to clarify this, Mike, before we
sure.
let this go, because, again, I spoke at a recent trade association meeting, actually several lately, and in regards to this parts trader issue. And, again, I really want to clear this out. I'm not saying that I like parts trader. I'm not saying parts trader is a good thing. What I'm saying, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, what I'm saying is that I think safety, we need to put as much concern into safely fixing a vehicle and researching. The same person I see that doesn't like parts traders putting a used quarter on, and that to me is horrible. The same person that doesn't like parts trader or CCC1 sharing their data isn't doing a 0-point calibration on the vehicle. I'm just saying safety needs to be more of a priority to us than some of these other things we worry about. So again, I feel like my message is getting really mixed out there. I'm just about fixing the car right. And I think at the end of the day, the customer's trusting you as an insurer to insure them and make sure their car's fixed right, and they're trusting you as a shop to do that. And when we don't research these things, like, for example, if I had not replaced that Nissan trim panel on the Nissan Versa, that center pillar trim, and Nissan says I need to, that to me is a really, really bad thing. So I just want to make sure my comments are not getting miscued out there on that.
Well, duly noted. It's good place to end. We're out of time. That was a quick hour. I want to thank you for your presentation. Mike has given his email address here for anybody who needs it. We also are going to have this in archives, as I mentioned, ABRN.com estimating webinar. And if you also, I'd like to thank Vale Training Solutions again for being the sponsor of this event. And we will continue to bring events like this to the audience and to the industry to help educate and inform everybody on how to do things better and hopefully help their business. So with that, I want to say hope everybody has a good day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mike. God bless everybody.